As will be record-breaking despite high gas prices. Chanley Painter reports.
AAA predicting a record-breaking 45 million people will be traveling at least 50 miles for the holiday between today and Monday. That's up from 44.8 million last year. Driving is the most popular way to travel this weekend, and more than 39 million people are expected to hit the roads. That's up 100,000 from last year. And this afternoon is expected to be one of the worst times to hit the road, along with Friday and Monday afternoons. And of course, the best time to hit the road is today after 9 p.m. Eastern. Gas prices are also higher than last year, when the national average for a regular gallon of gasoline on Memorial Day was $3.18. Current pump prices, national average of $4.56.
More news available online at afn.net. And download the AFN mobile app for your Android or iPhone. I'm Rusty P.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video, When Your Faith is Illegal, by Frank Harbor, on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net. We inform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We equip.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
We also rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Appreciate you joining us today. Man, so much going on in my home state of Texas for sure, but also across the country. I mean, Kentucky, you saw Congressman Thomas Massie be defeated. Big campaign by not just President Trump, but really the entire White House team. I think Pete Hegseth flew in and campaigned against Massie. I don't know much about it. I know the guy that won the race is a Navy SEAL, but that's about all I know about him. But no question, this is a big deal because well, not just in that race, but across the country, there were a lot of races anywhere that President Trump endorsed. I think he was undefeated this week. So tons of victories. And then he's endorsed this week Ken Paxton in the race for U.S. Senate in Texas. So I think these are big moves. I think they're important. I think it shows that the Trump agenda, not just President Trump himself, but the Trump agenda is extremely popular, and that people want to see it get done, and they're frustrated. I'm frustrated with a U.S. Senate that is just doing nothing, and I, even John Cornyn this week in response to President Trump's endorsement of Ken Paxton said something about just look at all the stuff that we've done the last 6 months. Really? Like what? I mean, come on, are you kidding me? The fact that the SAVE Act has not been passed by the United States Senate tells you how inept they are. And tells you that the anti-Trump agenda, which I would argue is very clearly the constitutional Christian conservative agenda. I mean, if you look at the things that President Trump has done in the last 15 months, it's been the most constitutional conservative Christian agenda that I have ever seen from a president in my lifetime. And I think I could make a decent argument in American history. I'm not kidding. I mean, I really believe that what Trump has done and accomplished in the last 15 months has been as good as any president in history in their presidential powers, what they've done to move the country back in the right direction, get us back on track, get us back within constitutional jurisdictions for the federal government, get us back to a God consciousness. I mean, that's huge. I mean, I'm looking at my book, Rebuilding Liberty, and the 12 steps to recovery for the country. And it's like, I mean, boom, 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 right down the list. President Trump has done things specifically going in that direction for that agenda. And so for John Cornyn to say, look at what we've done the last 6 months, what you've done is everything except the Trump agenda and the what the American people have been calling for. So I think Cornyn's going to lose next week. I think Ken Paxton will win. I was hoping he would anyway. I'm actually headed to an event today for Ken Paxton that I'm helping to co-host. We already had it on the agenda and scheduled prior to President Trump's endorsement. We were hoping this endorsement would happen. In fact, I would argue that Ken Paxton's move that ultimately led to this was probably one of the most brilliant political moves I have seen him in my lifetime. If you don't recall this race in Texas, Cornyn's been in the Senate forever, and Paxton's been a fantastic attorney general with some serious personal life issues, but has delivered incredibly well as attorney general for Texas and for the country. Probably the best, well, no doubt the best attorney general in the country, and probably would have been the U.S. attorney general if it hadn't been for the Pam Bondi thing. And then by the time, she was fired, the Texas race was already, Ken was already way into the Texas race and very close to winning. So he challenged John Cornyn, who again has been in the Senate forever. Texas has, Ted Cruz is fantastic. He is a model U.S. senator and what we want more of. John Cornyn's the opposite. He's a GOP, Republican in name only senator that has publicly acted like he's with us on most things, and his voting record at the end of the day, once you get things to a vote in the Senate, is pretty decent when you just look at it on paper. But that's not where most of the real work happens in the Senate. Behind the scenes, he has been terrible. He's cut us off at the knees. He's been awful when it comes to the controlling all the Senate fund, the Republican Senate to senatorial committee funds, and supporting only rhinos across the country and not conservatives that were running for U.S. Senate. He's been so bad that I actually created a draft David Barton for U.S. Senate campaign back in 2014 and tried to get David Barton to run for the U.S. Senate. My very good friend and colleague, I host his radio program. I've been with Wall Boulders and David Barton for 25 years, but I did this without his permission. I went out and started recruiting people to help draft David to run for U.S. Senate, and just started ginning up support all over the state of Texas and across the country. And it actually created, there was quite a groundswell for it. People were very excited about it. And then went to David and said, hey, man, all these people want you to run. And yes, I did this, but would you please consider this? And he and the family considered it. They came very close to running. It was, it was basically a decision that there were too many other things that David has tremendous influence in the culture and had very important work to do with Wall Builders, and had to make that cost benefit analysis, and came down on the side of continuing to do Wall Builders full time and not going into the Senate at that time. And anyway, so that's how much, that's a long time ago. That's 12 years ago. Cornyn has won 2 races since then, and was going to probably win this race if somebody like Ken Paxton didn't step up and run this time around. Okay, so again, it's been a close race. That we had a 3-way race in the primary. Wesley Hunt was the third candidate, and Cornyn and Paxton were neck and neck, but neither got 50%. So we're in a runoff, and the runoff voting has already started in Texas. Started on Monday of this week, and the runoff will actually be next Tuesday on the 26th. So this is a really late endorsement by Trump, but here's what happened. So right when the runoff began, and you got to understand, John Cornyn has spent about $100 million to try, in just the primary, to try to get yet another term. Like, when is enough for people? Don't they? Isn't there a time to exit stage left? This guy's in his mid 70s. He's already, clearly showing signs of aging. He's not quite as bad as McConnell, having to be, wheeled around or falling off the stages, but he's clearly not all there like he was, 10 years ago, which we all age. I mean, come on. Everybody but Trump. I mean, he's the one guy that has hit 80 and doesn't show it at all. You'd think he's still 60, but Cornyn clearly is showing that. And just have some humility and say, okay, my time's up. I've been in the Senate for, I think he's been there nearly 30 years. Maybe it's 24, but it's more than 2 decades. Way too long. So anyway, here's what it looks like, could happen. I mean, certainly with these Trump endorsements meaning so much and having such an influence. Same thing in the Kentucky Senate race. I mean, you had Cameron, the attorney general from there, who I actually like and have been impressed with. But he was kind of the McConnell machine guy, and then Trump endorsed the other guy, and the other guy won big, like 2/3. So I think that'll happen in this Paxton Cornyn race on Tuesday, which means that's another person that has Cornyn has blocked the Trump agenda behind the scenes that will be gone. Now, granted, not until the end of the year, and Paxton's still got to win against this heretic, Tallarico. I don't say that lightly. I mean, this guy is an absolute false prophet in every way you can possibly think of. Tallarico's awful, and the Democrats have nominated him. So I think Paxton will blow him out of the water in November. no matter how much money they spent. But Cornyn spent $100 million to try to hold on to his seat. Think about it. That money could have been spent in other races around the country to get a stronger Senate majority for the Republicans. But Cornyn wasted it on himself in order to stay way longer than he should have in the U.S. Senate. So I just think such a non-patriot. He's the opposite of a patriot. He is a politician who thinks only of himself. A patriot thinks of the country. And Ken Paxton was actually willing to get out of the race as a patriot if Cornyn would just get the SAVE Act passed. And that's what I meant when I say the most brilliant political move ever was that Trump started signaling that he was going to do an endorsement way back right after the primary, after March 3rd. And people thought it could potentially be Cornyn, that he was going to stick with Cornyn. Because let's face it, Trump is terrible at endorsements and sometimes does that. Sometimes endorses because he's only getting information from the party people. And I mean, it's impossible for him to personally know all the different races out there. And he loves Paxton. I mean, he's talked very, good about Paxton over the years, and they've worked together on a lot of things. And but it looked like he might endorse Cornyn. So Paxton posts back in March, hey, I'll get out of the race if Cornyn will get the SAVE Act passed because it's the most important piece of legislation of our lifetime. We absolutely have to get this done in order to restore integrity in elections and actually have only legal citizens voting and know who's actually going in and voting. Stuff you would think would be common sense, but we cannot even get it passed out of the Senate. The votes are there, but you got this ridiculous, zombie filibuster being used to let the minority control instead of the majority, which I've ranted about here on the program, and I won't go into all that. So Paxton says, I'll get out if Cornyn will get the SAVE Act passed, and if the GOP will move this and get it done. Well, Cornyn then comes out for getting rid of the zombie filibuster for this one vote publicly. That's what he says, but it doesn't get done. So you can't. I mean, it was the perfect throwing down the gauntlet. Doesn't get done. So Paxton stays in the race, gets seen as the patriot in the race. Cornyn looks like either he doesn't have any juice, he's got no power in the Senate, and so if he can't get stuff done, then why should he be reelected? Or he's not truly working for the SAVE Act to get it done, and so here we are, still stuck with elections easy to cheat. And so Paxton, by doing that, I think that turned the runoff his direction, and now with Trump coming out and endorsing him, that's just huge here at the last minute as everybody's starting to go early vote. So it's just been an incredible week for President Trump in these primary elections, and I think next week will prove to be the exact same thing. So a lot of good people that won these primaries. Congrats to my friend Josh Clark out there in Georgia, going to be back in the House again, and just a lot of folks that I think had a good showing this week, and we'll see what happens next week with the Texas runoff and the outcome of that. So anyway, that was the biggest thing in the news that I definitely wanted to cover. I've got a couple interviews I'm going to share with you. I was at a fantastic conference called Liberty Pastors this last week. I go to these, we do maybe one every 2 or 3 months, and a lot of great speakers come in, but most importantly, a lot of pastors come in, and they get equipped. They get prepared for going back and speaking to cultural issues from a biblical perspective. And I took some microphones with me this time and was able to grab a couple of my favorite people out in the lobby between the speeches and had a chance to visit with them. Bill Federer, first up, caught up with him on some of the things that are happening right now. And KCarl Smith, we're going to talk about his book, which is all about basically Frederick Douglass versus Karl Marx. So let's jump into Bill Federer first before we go to break. Here we go.
Just ran into our good friend Bill Federer. Hey, brother.
Hey, Rick. Great to be with you.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting a couple of days with you here with these Liberty Pastors. We're sowing some good stuff into these folks to go back home and preach to their congregations. They're getting a lot of good truth.
Well, it's critical. With these midterms coming up, people don't realize that if the left can, if they pull it out, it's going to be impeachment of Trump. They're going to go after his cabinet. They're going to go after the moms who protest their kids being transitioned as, when they're at a school board meeting. I'm going to go after pro-life Catholics again. It's most of the world's history, Christians have been persecuted. We've been the exception, and we need to wake up as many people. When Charlie Kirk was on track to get all the young people out to vote, and I think they did a psyops to deflate all of that energy into conspiracy media. And
well, it had been a huge shift, especially in young men, right, in the 2024 election. So he was clearly being very successful at turning that vote. Our mutual friend Nasar Hassan, you just had him on the phone as we were talking, and talk about persecution of Christians and the silencing of the Christian voice. sounds like London, I don't want to say London has fallen, but let's just say that massive defeats in their election last week, or Muslim victories.
Yeah, so for those that are not familiar, Rick Green had myself and Frank Gaffney and Nassar Hussain. He is a Pakistani in London who converted to Christianity and mentioned it to a friend who went out and said, don't call me again, and tells everybody he's Christian. And there's security cameras of him walking down the street, and then a car pulls up. They get out with baseball bats, and they're like pummeling him.
Yeah.
And then the police don't do anything. And then it happens again. And then they have the little, flats that they live in, but you sort of park with a gate opens and you park your car. They climb over the gate and they throw brick through his car windows and they firebomb his cars and so much that the insurance companies won't give him any insurance. And so he and his family had to flee at 3 a.m. in the morning. This is like Birmingham, England. And so he started a movement called Legalize Apostasy. Make it legal that you can leave Islam and not get killed.
Yeah, which, it should be the case with any religion, right? Isn't that how you tell the difference between a cult and a religion, an actual religion, is that if you leave, that's okay. You're allowed to. You're choosing to leave. If you leave and we're going to pummel you or kill you, that's not a religion that we would want to have, prospering in our country.
Yeah, it's a cult activity. It gives you emotional support when you join, and they're all smiles. But if you leave, they ostracize you. And in this gang concept, it's called blood in, blood out.
Well, that's a cliffhanger to leave it on as we take a break. We'll be right back. You're listening to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green.
So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. Before she ever became aware of the possibility of a kinsman redeemer, Ruth, the Moabite, demonstrated a strong work ethic and confidence in the God of Israel. The way toward God's destiny for our lives is through faithful obedience to Him and diligent execution of what He's put in our hands to do right now. Before concerning ourselves with what may be next, we should first ask whether we've been faithful where we are. Faithfulness and diligence now yields clarity later. Let's put our hands to the plow we have now.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner, or visit the podcast page at afr.net for more from Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association.
How about this? Some actual good news on the healthcare front, even as costs just keep skyrocketing. So if you're 65 or older, MediShare now offers MediShare 65 Plus. Call them. You can talk to them about this. A lot of people are taking advantage of this now because even if you have Medicare Parts A and B, there are out-of-pocket things, deductibles and copays that just keep going up. And the whole point is to help you by giving you a low, consistent monthly payment that fills in the gaps. In fact, I can tell you how much MediShare 65 Plus is. For example, it's $99 a month up to age 75. It keeps costs under control. That helps with peace of mind. MediShare is trusted, too. It's been around for 30 years, and it's a community of people who help each other. Business owners, retirees, pastors, teachers. People love being part of it. Here's the number you can call now. They are easy to talk to. Call 833-45-BIBLE. That's 833-45-BIBLE. 833-45-BIBLE.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildmon, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hey, we are announcing 2 tours coming up in 2027, March of 2027. We're going to Greece and we're going to Italy. The Greece tour we call the Footsteps of Paul, and you're going to follow the footsteps of St. Paul in the country of Greece. And then the Italian tour, the tour of Italy, Venice, Florence, Pisa, Rome. We're calling the Make Lasagna Great Again tour. And these are coming up in March of 2027. And if you want to read all about them, the itinerary, the cost, everything you need to know about these tours coming up in March of Greece and Italy, go to tours.afa.net. That's tours.afa.net. We're going to have a lot of fun, a lot of good fellowship, and see some of the most historic and iconic sites in the world.
At the Core podcasts are available at afr.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution coach, and we went to break right in the middle of an interview with Bill Federer that I just grabbed a couple of days ago, literally in the lobby of a hotel in Wichita, Kansas, where we were at the Liberty Pastors event, a fantastic event. Let's jump back in with Bill Federer.
Right, so the MS-13 gang. To join the gang, you got to kill an innocent person.
Wow.
And show that you have no conscience. And then to leave the gang, they kill you.
Wow.
You cannot leave. And so in Islam, if you kill innocent people, you get part of the booty. But if you want to leave Islam, they kill you.
Wow.
It is, so basically, Muhammad, the dynamics of it is in Arabia, they had gangs. They called them clans or tribes, but it had this gang-like dynamic to it. And he just promised booty in the next life. And so imagine if the MS-13 gang simply started calling itself a religion.
Right.
Like, oh, you're a religion now? Well, I guess we can let you
have to
take
welcome
over.
you in now.
Yeah, you can take over neighborhoods and have your own vigilante justice and sex traffic 9-year-olds. And matter of fact, we can even teach MS-13 in schools.
Wow.
We'll give you your own little, you can have your own dress, the baggy pants and the, that wouldn't make sense.
And if you're against MS-13 doing all those things, you're a bigot.
Yeah. If anybody would protest that, you're a hateful person.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Nassar Hussein called me on WhatsApp on my way to the conference here. And he said 600 Muslims just got elected through they call them consular positions, but they're state reps.
Basically like local, what we would think of as either county commissioner or maybe even state rep, state legislator.
Yeah. And then he said they have 25 Muslim MPs. So there's 600 MPs, which would be our congressmen.
Yeah.
And 25 of them are outspoken Muslims. But he said that if you listen to their speech, they'll give one speech in English saying it's all tolerance and love.
Right.
They'll give a speech to their Muslim audience and say, we're one step closer to taking over England. We're going to get a majority in the parliament. We're going to enact Sharia law. And
isn't that true here too, though? We've seen the videos of these imams and others essentially saying, we're going to be peaceful for now. It's cultural jihad for now.
Yeah.
But we will submit them. They ultimately, we will take over America. We're going to take over Congress. We're going to take over. I mean, they have telegraphed their plans.
Yeah. And Jack Hibbs at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills was telling me that there's a Muslim woman now running for mayor of Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, if she gets in, it'll be like Mondami on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And then Steyer, if I'm saying his name correctly, Tom.
Tom Steyer. I did see Jack's video on this. Apparently the Muslims are all supporting him.
Yeah, CARE. This is a designated terrorist group.
Supporting a candidate for governor openly.
This Democrat billionaire. And so if he gets in, he's going to be indebted to him.
Wow.
And, one of the things I observed in reading and writing on Islam, there were 3 Jewish tribes in Medina, and they had intertribal warfare. They had Trump derangement syndrome against each other. And when the Muslims first come in, Muhammad picked on one of the tribes and the other one sort of stood back and said, they were competition for me. They had to come in, And then, it's like high school rivalry of cities in West Texas. It's like, I hate that other city's team. And then he picked on the second one, and the big one stood back until the last one standing. He surrounds them and then brings them into the city, chops off their heads. But then you look at Egypt. You had Coptic Christians in Egypt were being persecuted by the Byzantine Christians of Constantinople. And when Amir ibn Alas, the Muslim leader, comes to the borders of Egypt with his cavalry, he says, we'll help you drive out those terrible Byzantine Christians. And they're like, oh, thanks. And when they come in, they take over, and then they cut out the tongues of anybody caught speaking Coptic. And then they conquer all of North Africa. And then Spain, in 711, Tariq lands with 80,000 cavalry, and there's a bunch of kingdoms, Visigothic Christian kingdoms, that hate each other. And so he'd pick on one, and the other one would stand back, and he'd pick on another one, the other one, and so in 10 years, they conquered all of Spain. And then you look at, in 1400s, the Muslims are surrounding Constantinople, and they've had 1,000 years of politics. And the last emperor was Constantine the 11th, and his brother Demetrius felt like he should have been chosen as the last emperor. Of course, they didn't know it's going to be the last. But Demetrius goes across the Bosporus, gathers the Muslim hordes, brings them to the walls of Constantinople to try to force his brother Constantine XI to recognize his claim to royalty.
So they have been masters throughout history at manipulating and taking advantage of our own internal conflicts, in terms of Christendom.
Yeah, and so then you have, in the early 1500s, the King of France is Francis I. He's captured in a battle by Spain, Charles V, the same Charles V that stood there at trial with Martin Luther. Anyway, so here the King of France is a prisoner of the King of Spain. After a couple concessions, the King of Spain lets him go. Well, Francis I goes directly to the Muslim Sultan, Suleiman the Magnificent, and says, you hate Spain, we hate Spain, let's do a Franco-Ottoman treaty. It goes on for 3 centuries. And so France is always upgrading the Muslim Ottoman military. Matter of fact, Napoleon was being sent on an assignment to upgrade the Ottoman artillery. And Napoleon's genius was artillery, cannons on wheels. He refused and he resigned from the military. And they finally, shuffled things around and let him stay in and didn't send him over there. But think if
he saw the war, he understood the danger of doing that.
Yeah, that plus he knew he wanted the glory.
Yeah.
But imagine if Napoleon's artillery expertise could have been at the hands of the Ottoman sultans. And then you fast forward to World War I. You had the Germans siding with the Turks against the British siding with Persia or Iran. In 1908, Persia and England formed the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, better known as BP.
I didn't know that.
And the Germans didn't have any oil, so they made a treaty with the Turkey because they had Kirkuk oil. And anyway, but here, the Middle East, the Persians were Shiite and the Turks were Sunni. But again, you have this generations of the French and English not liking each other. Now it's being overlaid over the Middle East. And then even fast forward to the Cold War. And you have the United States arming and training the Taliban in 1988 to fight the Soviet-Afghan war. So we're arming
the very
the Afghan Taliban to fight those terrible Soviets. And of course, the Taliban says, well, hey, we can do this.
Thanks for teaching us that. Now we'll use it against you.
And then, so the dynamics in America right now, we have Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah.
And the Democrats have the Trump derangements. And it's like, we hate the Republicans so bad. And then the Muslims come along and says, hey, we'll help you. And they go, great, reinforcements, all right. And they're happy to work together with them. But then I was in South Texas. I was in Sugar Land, Texas. And Pastor Andy Wood, and he was explaining to me how the Republican Party was reaching out to the Muslims and having, hey, we got some, they'll join our party. And it's like, we don't realize that they have their own agenda. It's like a pinball. They'll bounce off of either party as long as they can help advance their ultimate goal of Sharia.
Yeah. Wow. What a warning for us, just all of that history to recognize the game plan. The question is, will we see that blueprint and develop a strategy against it, right? Will we unite and with people that for the most part share our values? Like you're saying, it's like we disagree on some things, or maybe it's the personality. They hate Trump so much, or we hate their candidate so much that all of a sudden now we're teaming up with people that literally want to kill us at the end of the day if we don't submit to their tyranny. So what do we do to wake up, Bill? What do we do to respond to that?
Well, you're an expert at it, but the founding fathers on the First Continental Congress opened with prayer. And you had Anglicans and Presbyterians and
put their differences aside for that moment of unity.
Yeah, that they, there was a motion for prayer, and the delegate, Rutledge from South Carolina said no, but then Sam Adams stands up and he goes, I'm no bigot. I can hear the prayer of any man of piety who at the same time is a friend of our nation. And so this idea that, look, we need to unite together for the big things so that we can all have the freedom to continue having our Christian faith. And so it's this idea that let's stop hating people and let's try to work together on the big picture of saving our country.
Yeah.
It is really something that when Charlie Kirk died, and certain podcasters sort of got co-opted into a psyops where they were used to sow division.
That's right.
They did this in America in the 1950s with Hollywood. They were the influencers.
Yeah.
And they actually call it an influence campaign. They would find out who the Hollywood producers, movie producers are, and who their friends are, and who their friends are, and they would like befriend this friend so they could get on an inner circle to befriend that friend, and then finally they would get at the party with the movie producer, and then they would befriend them and seed them with divisive messaging. Wow. Vietnam War is bad. Capitalists are bad. And they would put it into their movies, and it would go to the downline, to those following the influence. And their goal is division. The word diabolical, diabolos, devil, it means to divide.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine.
And now they can do it with a TikTok 60-second video instead of a, multi-million-dollar 2-hour film.
Yeah, they found out that AI is 6 times more effective at getting people to change their views than humans are. They study you and me and they study you so much, they know everything you do on the internet.
Wow.
They know how long you're watching a video and then figures out the content.
So they know where your decision matrix is then. What really triggers you to turn that video off or to watch longer? So what are the things that are driving you? And then they can figure out the right message.
Yeah, we think we're using the internet and the phone for our purposes. It's just studying us.
Yeah.
And it's studying what are your pains and your pleasures, what are your fears, what are your desires, and then it can gradually, and they're powerful tools.
Yeah.
I mean, they can convince a boy that he's a girl.
Yeah, wow.
I listened to one podcast, and it was Christian family, and their son committed suicide. And they're looking at his chat conversations with this AI. And he's like, oh, there's multiverses, and you can go to the one on the other side. You just pull the trigger, and I'll see you on the other side.
Wow.
And the kid kills himself. And it's this, and so they want to bring division. The feminist movement was designed by the Soviets to divide men and women.
Break up the family.
And in the 1960s, divide the children against the parents.
So it sounds like then we have to figure out what are the most important things that unite us, and then rally people around that. And the 250 is a great chance to do that, right? Because we're going back to some of those basic things in the Declaration that really define what we are as Americans, that most people should want to rally around, that there is, truth, that there's life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all of those things. But we've got a job educating them on that and getting past the derangement syndrome of whatever the personality or our party is.
I love the one quote from Eisenhower, and he said, recognition of the supreme being is the most basic expression of Americanism.
There it is, yeah.
So, Tower Babel, they're all scattered. What happened? Well, they gravitated into language groups. That was their commonality.
Yeah.
And those language groups turned into nations. And so some of the very, very basics is we're speaking the same language, like we're communicating with each other. That's very basic. But here's Eisenhower saying the basic is we believe in a God of the Bible.
Yeah.
Not an Islamic God, a God of the Bible who what? Makes us all in his image. He gives us rights. And he is not a respecter of persons, therefore we're all equal.
Yeah.
So the purpose of the government is to guarantee to us our creator-given rights.
Amen.
And he's that's the common.
We got to start there.
That's the lowest common.
We got to start there. And I'll leave people with a visual as we wrap this up. I was just out at Freedom's Foundation, which Eisenhower helped start.
Oh wow.
Just outside of Valley Forge, and they have this big monument. And it's the Bill of Responsibilities and how the system should work. And the very bottom pillar, the biggest one, belief in God. And so you're exactly right. Bill, I hear everybody coming out. It's time for us to head in and give some talks to these pastors. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes with me.
Well, Rick, you're the best. I thank God for you, and looking forward to being down at Patriot Academy. And I tell people, get your church to get biblical citizenship classes. Become a Constitution coach.
Thank you.
This is something that God is doing through Rick Green and Patriot Academy, and it's the answer to turn things around.
Have you noticed the vacuum of leadership in America? We're looking around for leaders of principle to step up, and too often, no one is there. God is raising up a generation of young leaders with a passion for impacting the world around them. They're crying out for the mentorship and leadership training they need. Patriot Academy was created to meet that need. Patriot Academy graduates now serve in state capitals around America, in the halls of Congress, in business, in the film industry, in the pulpit, and every area of the culture. They're leading effectively and impacting the world around them. Patriot Academy is now expanding across the nation, and now's your chance to experience this life-changing week that trains champions to change the world. Visit patriotacademy.com for dates and locations. Our core program is still for young leaders 16 to 25 years old, but we also now have a citizen track for adults. So visit the website today to learn more. Help us fill the void of leadership in America. Join us in training champions to change the world at patriotacademy.com.
Well, I couldn't miss the opportunity with Bill Federer talking about the good work Patriot Academy was doing to play that little spot for you about what we've got going on. And there's a lot of great programs happening this summer. We got so many good events coming up, both at the campus at Patriot Academy in Constitution City, Texas, but across the country. In fact, we're going to be heading to several state capitals just here in a few days, I guess a couple of weeks actually, but we'll start off at the Colorado state capitol. We'll be there. Let's see, our Colorado Leadership Congress. Actually, I take that back. Florida's first up this year. So we'll be in Florida for our Leadership Congress there at the state capitol in Tallahassee on June 17th, 18th, and 19th. So you don't have to be from Florida to attend that one. If you're anywhere in the U.S. and you're 16 to 25 and the other dates that might be closer to you don't work, you can always come to Florida. And Florida's a great free state. We love going there. So Florida Leadership Congress, June 17th, 18th, and 19th. Then we head almost straight over to Colorado. We'll be doing the Colorado Leadership Congress at the June 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. And then we've got a couple of weeks off. And in July, we will take our kind of our Northeast beachhead, Delaware. Patriot Academy happens July 8th, 9th, and 10th. And then right after that, up to Idaho in Boise at their state capital for July 13th, 14th, and 15th. And then we got our big National Leadership Congress at the Patriot Academy campus. That'll be several hundred students. It'll be amazing, just like it was last year. Encourage folks to check that out. That's in our own legislative hall. We built a replica of the Texas House. We've got the committee rooms, the whole 9 yards. It's amazing. And if you haven't ever sent a student to us, if you're a young person listening, you've never been, you need to go to Patriot Academy's Leadership Congress. Go to patriotacademy.com, click on that button for Leadership Congress, the videos, the application. It's all right there where you can learn more. I'm telling you, you will absolutely have the time of your life. You'll meet some other great young people. You'll get leadership skills. You'll really understand what it means to be an American, and you may even find your purpose and what God's got for you. Check it out at patriotacademy.com. Quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green.
Hello, my name is Andy Miller, and I'm the president of Wesley Biblical Seminary based in Ridgeland, Mississippi. We are developing trusted leaders for faithful churches, and we do that based in the authority of Scripture and in the reality that Christians can be transformed. We do that also through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. We'd love for you to learn more about Wesley Biblical Seminary at wbs.edu, where we're developing trusted leaders for faithful churches.
For more than 150 years, Blue Mountain Christian University has been committed to educating students through a Christian worldview rooted in Scripture and truth. Our close-knit campus community, affordable degree options, and dedicated faculty prepare students for lives of faith, leadership, and service. With on-campus and online programs, BMCU meets students where they are without compromising what matters most. Learn more at bmc.edu and move mountains with Blue Mountain Christian University.
It's funny how you spend so much time planning and preparing for the future, working to fulfill your dreams, achieve your goals. Then one day something changes, and you find yourself thinking about what you'll leave behind. Is your legacy secure? Maybe you heard about charitable giving at some point, but never gave it much thought until now. Does it really make a difference? And how does it work? That's where AFA Foundation can help. AFA is a donor-supported ministry, and charitable giving is a great way to help us fulfill the Great Commission and protect families for generations to come. Whether you know about things like charitable gift annuities, bequests, trusts, and wills, or not, AFA Foundation will not only provide in-depth answers to your questions, we'll even help you set everything up. Why not get started today? Take some time to visit afafoundation.net and learn how you can make a lasting legacy. afafoundation.net.
The Word of God tells us many times in one form or another, fear not. Many people are very fearful about some of the many perils and dangerous happenings that are going on in the world. Psalm 91 verses 1 and 2 tell us, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in Him I will trust." I'm Joseph Parker, and we here at the American Family Association would like to remind you, fear not. Put your trust in the Lord. We'd like to both encourage and challenge you to aggressively put your faith to work. And one way to do that is to pray Psalm 91 daily for yourself and your family, and keep your trust in Him. If you'd like to get a copy of the Psalm 91 prayer for yourself, email us here at psalm91@afa.net. AFA.net. Again, that's Psalm 91 at AFA.net.
At the Core podcast are available at AFR.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution coach. And while at the Wichita, Kansas Liberty Pastors event, I ran into KCarl Smith. Love this guy. Fantastic book on Karl Marx and Frederick Douglass. And just I'm thrilled and thankful that I got a chance to sit down with him and talk about it. So here's my interview with KCarl Smith.
Can't think of a better topic than Douglass versus Marx. You put together a debate between these two guys. I love it.
Well, the Douglass and Marx were contemporaries. Both of them were born in 1818, but they never met. So we said, oh, wait a minute now. What would Frederick Douglass, being America's greatest liberty messenger, if he had a face-to-face meeting with Karl Marx, the father of communism, what would he say to him?
Yeah.
Well, there's no history of that because they never met. So we put together this 31 dialogues. We're there in a room, they're going at it. Now, here's the thing that people need to know. The content of what they said is something we did not make up. It's based on source documents. It's based on what Douglass said, what Douglass wrote, his actual beliefs, and the same thing with Karl Marx, his actual belief. So thank God we have a literary legacy where Frederick Douglass wrote about free speech, the role of government, personal responsibility, private property rights. All the claims of Marxism, Douglass wrote about that before Marxism existed. How so? Well, think about it. The slave master and the slave government, same techniques of oppression.
Yeah.
So when Douglass wrote about what he experienced on the plantation as a slave from the slave master is identical to the same techniques of oppression used by Marxism or slave government. So Douglass wrote about
just tyranny from under a different name.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Because matter of fact, one of Douglass' powerful speech, his lecture is called "The Nature of Slavery," and in that speech, Douglass said the first aim of slavery is to take God out of your life. That's the first aim of Marxism.
That's right. Yeah. And so now back up. You literally took their words. Picked a topic that they both spoke to or about.
Yes, and the claims of Marxism. Yeah. Everything, because Douglass's life and his writing refutes all the claims of Marxism, because that's why the left don't lean on Douglass.
Yeah.
Because Douglass refutes everything about Marxism. Douglass talked about our God-given rights.
Yeah.
Founding fathers, right?
Yeah.
So the left has no answer for him. So Douglass is not a museum piece, in my opinion. Douglass is a weapon to defeat Marxism. The sad thing is, most people do not know about that.
That was actually my next question. Why have we somewhat lost Frederick Douglass? I remember at the State Board of Education a couple weeks ago, as part of our arguments was we wanted Frederick Douglass to be in one of those guys that we spent more time on in the classroom. And the left hates it because of exactly what you're saying, because he teaches things that destroys their arguments. Do you think it's coming back? I mean, it's part of what you're devoted to.
Because see, it is coming back because in my book, it's not Democrat versus Republican. It's not left versus right. It's good versus evil.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the other day when you spoke. It's really good versus evil.
Yeah.
And people want to know the truth. So thank God we have the literary legacy of Frederick Douglass to refute the false narrative and the claims of Marxism. We just have to be wise enough to leverage that. And put it in the hands.
Tell me about the book. When's it coming out? And
the book is out.
It's already out. Okay.
Don't go to Amazon. Don't give Bezos any more money.
You got it.
But come to my website, and it's a little bit long, the URL, but it's KCarl, KCarl .company.site, S-I-T-E.
Okay, do it one more time.
KCarl, KCarl, KCarl.company.site, S-I-T-E.
S-I-T-E. So wait a minute, KCarl. So see, every time I mention my wife's name, Kara, it's always, is it a K or a C? And so with KCarl, it's both.
I gotta get a history on it. So my given name is Keith Smith.
Okay.
Keith Carl Smith. And several years ago, my daughter said, Dad, Keith is not a hard enough name. It's not like Rocky. So let's eliminate the last letters off your first name. So take the K, put it with my middle name, Carl with a C. So publicly, I go by KCarl as one word.
And how old was your daughter when she came up with this?
She was about 17 years old.
I love it. All right, now tell me before we go, what are you going to share with the pastors tomorrow?
Well, I'm going to really talk about the essence of if we're going to defeat Marxism, CRT, and DEI, you got to understand first that CRT and DEI are derivative from Marxism.
Yeah.
So the best way to defeat Marxism is with Frederick Douglassism. We got to take the liberty message of Frederick Douglass, which we have now, and take that message, understand it, to articulate the importance and the value of liberty to the minds of people, because people want to know the truth. But they never heard the counter argument, especially from the writings and life of Frederick Douglass.
Well, give us a little quick history on Douglass, because I've heard David Barton talk about him quite a bit and give some of the bio. But I mean, he was incredibly accomplished. Didn't he have? He had access to multiple presidents. I mean, what were just some of the things that he did?
Yeah, David's right on point. Frederick Douglass was an advisor to 5 Republican presidents.
5?
Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant, James Garfield, Rutherford Hayes, and Benjamin Harrison. 0 days of formal schooling. He was all homeschooled. He started on homeschooling program.
No kidding.
To learn how to read and write, because why? He rejected the slave master's Common Core curriculum that he had set out, so he rejected that. Right?
The slave master's Common Core curriculum.
So, but the tidbit about Douglass' life that really blows your mind, I remember when David Barton said that, Frederick Douglass wrote 3 autobiographies. And David said, I don't know, everybody has 3 autobiographies, but Frederick Douglass had 3 autobiographies done for different times of his life. But at the time of his death, 1895, Frederick Douglass had $300,000 in savings. That's after being a slave for 20 years, which is equivalent to $10 million today.
Wow.
So that's why the life and the liberty message of Frederick Douglass is the message, the most effective counter message to defeat.
He lived it.
Marxism.
He didn't just theorize.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. Karl Marx was a theorist about oppression. He never lived it. He was a
deadbeat dad. He did nothing to help his family. He couldn't hold down a job.
As a matter of fact, in one of the debates we came up with, my brother, we actually role played these things. That's how we wrote it. He was Marx, of course, now it was Douglass. In one of the debates, Frederick Douglass confronts Karl Marx regarding his lack of work ethic. And Frederick Douglass basically said, any man that does not financially support his own obligation, his family, has no need trying to lead a nation.
Wow, I love it.
So the point I want to bring up before we leave here, so you have these 31 debates. Every debate is followed by a reflection, the moral of the story, talking points. So now you can take this debate and look at these talking points that help you articulate better your view on those subjects.
Yeah.
And also there are discussion questions with guided answers. It's really a curriculum.
KCarl, it's such good timing because I work with a lot of youth and there's a fascination with socialism right now. They don't even call it that necessarily, but they're drawn to the same things that Marx was for. And so now's the right time to get this book in front of them and to have the discussion, to be able to get them to think through it, not just read the words, but then think through it. I'm so glad you did that part.
And also what it does, it helps them to prepare them. When young people go to these college campuses, which is nothing but a Marxist indoctrination boot camp, we got to equip them with the intellectual tools. So before they walk in that classroom, and that professor says something, you bring Douglas to the conversation, because Douglas probably wrote about it.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I just, as you're saying that, I'm just picturing classrooms all over America on college campuses where we equip these young people, and you've got a Frederick Douglass type person sitting in that classroom to counter the professor.
We could save this nation 1 or 2 election cycles.
I love it. KCarl, thank you, man.
Appreciate you, man, and thanks for being a part of Liberty Pastors as well. All right, we're back. We're back on At the Core. Always good to visit with KCarl. And listen, this book, very important to think about this not as just a book to read. It's not just a history book. It's literally like a curriculum on worldviews, as KCarl was saying. It's a chance to really compare these 2 philosophies, one being biblical from Frederick Douglass, and then the other being, as anti-biblical as you can get with Karl Marx, but able to take those 2 philosophies and see what they do with particular issues. And so just like in a debate format, if the 2 guys were actually standing there and they'd be asking, maybe getting questions from the audience or from a moderator, but also asking each other questions, it would give you a chance to hear both sides. And that's what KCarl has put together here. And I think one of our biggest challenges right now is that most kids today are only getting one side. They are only getting the socialist, Marxist philosophy. They're only getting this idealistic in this ivory tower world, that somehow that would make everybody equal and everybody would be happy. And of course, we know socialism fails every single time it's tried. In fact, we played the Patriot Academy promo a few minutes ago, and I talked about all the different Patriot Academy events this summer. At any Patriot Academy event, if somebody hollers out the word socialism, you will hear all of the students in unison say, is bad, very, very bad. We've done that for 25 years at Patriot Academy because you got to get down to it, and you got to teach why it's bad. But initially, just saying, look, this has never ever worked. And these people that lie and say, oh, we didn't do enough of it. We didn't have enough control over the economy. We didn't implement socialism enough, and that's why it failed every single place that it's ever been attempted. And I know you get these arguments for the Nordic examples or whatever, and we've had guests on to talk about that and show how none of those places, the Netherlands and places like that, they don't have actual full socialism. What they do is they have an economy that's more capitalistic, and then they have socialist policies, and it's a very different culture and makeup. There's far less diversity. There's a much more of a social, not proof. What's the word I'm looking for? More social pressure to not just live off the government. Now, what they're experiencing now, and I think you'll see in just a few short years, a complete failure, is the immigration that the rest of the world is getting from the Islamic invasion, and now they're getting cultures that don't have that same work ethic and value system. And so when you import people from places like Somalia, where they have a worldview and a philosophy that says you should absolutely take advantage of the system and your neighbor and everybody else. You don't treat your neighbor the way you want to be treated. You treat your neighbor as bad as they'll let you treat them in order to benefit you. That's their worldview and their philosophy. And as more of those people get imported into these countries that have been able to have a much higher safety net than other nations, it will destroy that safety net, because now you're going to have people that just mooch off the system, that cheat the system, that use corruption to steal from their neighbors. I mean, we're experiencing that in America in a huge way. And the first reason that has happened, that opened the door for that to happen, is not even the immigration issue. The first thing that happened was we let government get outside of its proper lane. We let our constitutional republic allow our federal government to do more than what the Constitution says they should be able to do. Anytime you get the federal government involved in taking care of the poor or daycares or education or any of these areas, you're going to have corruption. You're going to have waste. You're going to have lack of accountability, and it's always going to make the system work. Those are all things that the Founding Fathers recognized should be done as local as possible. So if you can take care of it at the local level, you don't do it at the state level. If you can do it at the state level and take care of it, you don't do it at the federal level. So that's why the Constitution itself is framed in a way to limit the federal government to things that only the federal government can do. You only want the federal government to wage war. You only want the federal government to negotiate tariffs and treaties and all of those things. You don't want to have, in our case now, 50 different versions of that going on. So those things make sense to do at the federal level, and that's why they're in Article 1, Section 8. That's why they were very specific about that. What you don't want is to then say to the federal government, well, you might as well go ahead and do education so that it's the same in all 50 states. No, that's a huge mistake. It should be left up to the states and as local as possible, and you'll get 50 different formulas, and you'll have these laboratories of experiment and freedom where people try different things, and then they learn from each other what worked or didn't work. And we just got so far away from that, and we started doing all these things at the federal level, which meant then the federal government had to tax us and take all of our money that we would have paid at the local level to help people, or even at the state level. Now the federal government gets it, and then because they're so far away and we don't even know who these people are that work for these bureaucracies, now they're subject to the corruption and the waste. Now they're spending our money. It's not their money, so they don't care if they waste it, and they're not even spending it on themselves, so they don't care if they get good quality education or daycare or any of those things. So it just doesn't work. Never has, Never will. And so the answer is first to get the jurisdictions right. Get the government back into its lane. Get it doing only those things that only that level of government can do. So even when you say it's something you want government to do, you say, okay, if government, which government? And so then if it's, federal, state, or local, but most of the time it shouldn't be government at all. It should be us. It should be local. It should be in the church. It should be the individual. That's the biblical way to do it. And we learned that from Frederick Douglass, of course, if we dive further into it. And of course, Karl Marx is the exact opposite. So it starts with the jurisdictions. You get that wrong, then you open the door for things like the Somali daycares and all of the other massive fraud. And I'm talking hundreds of billions of dollars. In fact, Elon Musk estimated that $2 trillion of the annual budget is fraud. I mean, that should tell you right there, the federal government's doing things it shouldn't do, and it's spending money and giving money to people that should not even be in the country in the first place, let alone should certainly not be getting money from us and our tax dollars and our government paying for it, and then paying them that they don't even assimilate. They don't even share our values. So they're not even just like taking care of people that are in need. They're literally paying the bills for people that want to destroy our country and want to completely change who we are as a nation. So it's a complete mess. It can be turned around, but it's going to take real courage. It's going to take things like what President Trump is doing. It's going to take things like what we've talked about in terms of defeating even Republicans that are not supporting the president's agenda to deport people and have reverse migration. But I digress, and we are out of time. So I hope you have a fantastic day. Walker will be back with you tomorrow. You've been listening to At the Core with Walker, Wildmon, and Rick Green.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American
Faith,
Family Radio.
family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Where can you access instruction and inspiration?